Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we're going pretty retro.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling Zak McKracken and the Alien Mindbenders from way back in 1988.
A classic.
A LucasArts adventure,
Yeah.
but maybe not as famous as, like, Monkey Island or something.
Right. It's got a cult following, you know, especially I think over in Europe.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting to me. We've got all these reviews, retrospectives, and they all say, like, this game, it just sticks with you.
It does.
Even decades later.
It really does, and it's kind of a weird one, even for LucasArts.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, on the surface, it's aliens and the phone company
Right.
making everyone dumb, but there's
I see what you mean.
there's so much more.
So, like, how does that even work?
So
Who is this Zak guy?
all right. So picture this. It's 1997, the future at the time.
Sure.
And Zak McKracken, he's this tabloid reporter working for this paper that's, let's just say truth adjacent.
Wow.
And he gets this wild story about a signal messing with people's minds.
Okay.
And it's coming from the phone lines.
From the phone line. So he's, like, reporting on the kind of stuff he gets caught up in.
Yeah. I think that's part of the brilliance of the setup.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, he's the king of the crazy headline, and now it's happening to him.
That's got to be a trip.
It is. And what he finds out
Yeah.
is that it's these aliens, the Caponians,
The Caponians.
with this mind-bending machine, making everyone, you know, a little dumber.
So the game is, like, making fun of how much we love, like, dumb media.
Yeah. It's like satire, but with alien invasion on the side.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah. And get this, it takes you all over. Egypt, the Bermuda Triangle, even Mars.
Wait, hold on. Mars. So
Yeah.
it's like ancient mysteries and sci-fi all at the same time.
That's Zak McKracken, baby.
Wow.
Mixing the real world with all this crazy stuff. Two-headed squirrels, a Nepalese mystic who takes credit cards.
That's pretty wild.
You even meet Elvis.
Elvis. How is Elvis in this?
Only as the king of the Caponians, of course.
Okay, of course.
But what's really interesting about the humor is that it's not like, you know, like in your face, like some other LucasArts games.
It's not all slapstick.
It's not. A lot of the reviews talk about it being more like subtle.
More like situational.
Yeah. So instead of like constantly cracking jokes,
Okay.
it's the situations themselves that are funny. One puzzle, you set a police station on fire.
Wow.
And then Zak's headlines, they're brilliant, just like pure gold.
Like what? Give me an example. I got to hear this.
Let me see. Reporter becomes space cadet in space Cadillac.
That's amazing.
Or how about this? Man trades mines with dolphin, destroys tuna boat fleet.
That's incredible.
Hurrah!
It's fantastic.
So it's just got this really witty writing.
Yeah, you really feel like you're in Zak's world.
Exactly.
Not just like watching a story.
Yeah, so the writing is great, the setting is wild.
Yeah.
What about the gameplay itself?
Ah, right.
Well, that's where things get
True.
maybe a little divisive. I mean, it uses that point and click verb interface like Maniac Mansion,
Okay.
another LucasArts classic.
Yeah.
But you actually control
More than one person.
multiple characters, all with different abilities.
So you're not stuck with Zak the whole time.
Nope. You've got Annie,
Okay.
a scientist, and then these two students, they're stuck on Mars. So each character has their own stuff, their own skills, and you got to figure out how to use them together.
So it's like cooperative.
Yeah. Like, Annie might be the only one who can use a certain gadget, while Zak can, sweet talk his way past somebody.
It's like a team effort.
It is. You really got to think strategically.
But didn't some of the reviews say it's really hard?
Oh, yeah. It's got that reputation. You got to be careful with your money.
Okay.
Because you can actually get stuck somewhere if you run out.
Really?
And the mazes. Oh, the mazes.
That's never good.
Even if you're like a seasoned adventure game player, you might need a walkthrough or, a lot of patience.
So it's tough, but like in a way that some players would really enjoy.
Right. Like those who love that old school figure it out yourself vibe.
Exactly.
But before we get too deep in the gameplay, we got to talk about David Fox.
The developer.
Yeah, he's like a legend in adventure games.
Oh, yeah. I did see that he also worked on Maniac Mansion.
He did.
So is Zak McKracken like a sequel or?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And it gets at what makes this game so different.
Okay.
It's not just like Maniac Mansion with aliens, it takes like the core stuff, puzzles, humor, exploration,
Right.
but then adds this deeper layer.
Okay, so what is that? What's the secret ingredient?
It comes from Fox's own interests. He was really into like New Age stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, ancient mysteries.
That's interesting. Okay, so how does that that fascination like show up in the game?
Well, I mean, look at the premise, right? Aliens dumbing us down. It's playing on that fear of losing,
What?
our intellectual edge, like being controlled.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
And then there's the Scalarian device.
What's that?
It's this ancient artifact, super important for stopping the aliens.
I'm intrigued.
And it ties into Fox's whole thing with ancient civilizations and, their supposed technology.
I am definitely hooked now.
Yeah.
Aliens, ancient artifacts, a reporter saving the world, and Elvis. What more could you ask for? But before we get like too lost in the story, I read that Zak McKracken is kind of like a lost game or a cult classic. Not as well known as some of the other LucasArts stuff.
Right. It's interesting because like the reviews were good back then, but it didn't sell as well as, say, some of their other games.
Why not?
Part of it might be the difficulty, which we talked about.
Yeah.
But I also think it came out, 1988, right when adventure games were like changing, like technologically, graphically. Games were starting to look different, more realistic, and players, I think, they wanted more.
More what?
From the story, the characters, the whole package.
So it's like Zak McKracken was stuck in the middle.
Yeah, maybe too advanced for the old school.
Yeah.
But not quite there yet for what was coming next.
Like that awkward teenage phase for video games?
Exactly. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't a huge mainstream hit, the people who loved it, they really loved it.
They formed that cult following.
Yes, especially in Europe.
Okay, now that's what I want to unpack.
Yeah.
What was it about Europe that like really connected with Zak McKracken?
Well, I think there are a few key ingredients there. We've talked about the humor, the challenge, the mix of real world and the
fantastical.
Yeah. But there's this other layer to Zak McKracken.
Yeah.
It's a game that makes you think.
Wait, we're not just talking puzzles and jokes.
No. This is like real thought-provoking stuff.
Wow, okay.
It messes with the line between truth and fiction.
Okay.
It looks at the power of belief, even globalization.
All in an adventure game.
And it does it all with,
What?
a smile. It's never preachy.
That's a tough balance to get right.
It is. It's all about how the story is told, the characters, the choices you make.
So not just like telling you what to think.
Exactly. Like, remember that witch doctor in Africa with the diploma?
Yeah. From like Watsamata U or something?
Yes. It's hilarious.
I was.
But it's also saying something about how, globalization can flatten cultures.
Oh, I see. Make everything the same.
Right. Like even on Mars, there's a hostel with all the like tourist trap stuff.
So it's like the Caponians don't just want us dumb. They want us boring too.
Exactly. And Zak, he's like pushing back against that. He's always running into weird stuff.
The unexpected.
Yeah. And he has to use his wits, his skepticism.
Which, speaking of the game, is pretty quiet, isn't it?
You're right. There's not much dialogue. Not like, some other LucasArts games.
It's almost like a silent movie in a way.
It is. You have to watch, explore, put the clues together yourself.
And that probably makes it like way more satisfying when you figure something out.
Oh, absolutely.
But speaking of figuring things out.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot more to unpack here.
Oh, definitely.
With Zak McKracken. There's something about this game that like invites you to analyze it, to come up with your own theories.
It's a game that rewards you for thinking deeply.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are we waiting for? Let's dive back in and see what other secrets we can uncover.
It really does, It encourages you to piece everything together, the clues, the information, think critically.
Yeah, and not just to follow some straight path.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Like you have to explore, think about the possibilities, come to your own conclusions.
That makes me think about all the different ways people interpret the ending.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything.
Right.
But there's a lot of debate about what actually happens.
Oh, for sure. It's not like a simple happy ending.
Right.
It leaves you wondering, with all these questions, like there's more to it than what you see on the screen.
And that's part of why it sticks with you.
Definitely. That ambiguity, it's like you finish playing, but it stays with you.
It's like those books or movies you just can't stop thinking about.
Yes. You keep going back to certain scenes, trying to figure it all out.
Exactly. And Zak McKracken is full of those moments.
It really is.
It's like it's telling you, hey, look deeper. Don't just take things at face value.
And that's so important, especially these days when we're just bombarded with information all the time.
Right. Like, so much of it is just noise.
Exactly. So playing Zak McKracken, it's almost like an antidote to that.
Yeah, it's like a reminder to slow down.
Yeah.
To pay attention. To think for yourself.
Exactly. It rewards you for being curious, for thinking critically.
And for being skeptical.
Absolutely. Don't just accept the easy answer.
Which brings us back to Europe, right?
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why the game clicked with European audiences.
There's a certain, intellectual playfulness to it.
Yeah.
A willingness to embrace the absurd.
And to challenge how we think about things.
Exactly. And that kind of playfulness, I think, it resonated with European audiences who have a long tradition of satire, surrealism.
Right. It's like the game was speaking their language.
In more ways than one.
And it wasn't just the humor, the themes.
Right.
Remember all those real-world locations?
Well, yeah, Egypt, the Bermuda Triangle.
Mars?
It's like a world tour.
Well, it turns out those places, they really fascinated European audiences back then.
Yeah, they were familiar in a way, but also exotic, historical, and mysterious.
And don't forget, this was 1988.
Right.
No internet, no cheap flights.
So Zak McKracken was like, a virtual vacation.
Yeah, you could explore the world from your computer.
Exactly.
But speaking of exploring the world,
yeah,
there's something else I wanted to mention.
Okay.
The way the game portrays different cultures.
Ah.
We talked about the African witch doctor.
Right, the Whatsamata You guy.
But there are other examples, too, like the Nepalese mystic who takes credit cards.
Or the Swedish scientist who speaks in broken English.
Right, and that's, it's a delicate line to walk.
It is.
Between humor and, well, potentially insensitive stereotypes. It's important to acknowledge that
absolutely
humor can be tricky, especially when it comes to different cultures.
For sure.
What's funny in one place might be offensive in another.
Definitely. And sensibilities have changed since 1988.
For sure.
What might have been okay back then might not be seen the same way today.
Right, but I also think it's important to remember what Zak McKracken is all about.
Yeah.
Challenging assumptions, looking beyond the surface.
Right.
It's not trying to be, perfectly realistic
or
politically correct.
It's using humor to point out how absurd stereotypes can be.
And how they can distort our view of the world.
Exactly. And it's not just picking on other cultures either.
Right. Remember Zak's boss? The tabloid editor?
Oh, yeah.
He's like a caricature of a certain type of American.
Totally. Blustering, self-important, more interested in headlines than truth.
And let's not forget the stereotypical California surfer dude.
Right, always chasing waves, trying to pick up girls.
But it never feels mean-spirited, does it?
It doesn't.
It's more like poking fun at ourselves.
Yeah, at human nature in general.
No matter where you come from.
Exactly. I think that's part of its appeal.
Yeah.
It celebrates our differences.
Right.
But it also reminds us that we're all connected.
By our shared humanity.
Beautifully put.
But there's one aspect of Zak McKracken we haven't talked about yet.
Okay.
And I think it's crucial to understanding why it's so enduring.
What's that?
The emotional core.
Ah, interesting.
You wouldn't necessarily think of a game about aliens and ancient mysteries as being emotional.
No, not really.
But there's a surprising amount of heart in Zak McKracken.
There is,
Think about Zak himself.
Okay.
Starts out cynical, jaded, seen it all.
Yeah.
But as the game goes on, he opens up.
He starts to believe in something bigger than himself.
Exactly. And it's not just Zak.
Right.
All the characters, even the goofy ones, they have their own stories, motivations.
They're not just flat characters.
Right. They feel real.
They do.
And it's the relationships between them that really drive the story.
The camaraderie, the friendship.
Yeah. Between Zak, Annie, and those students stranded on Mars.
They support each other, challenge each other, help each other grow.
And I think that sense of connection.
Yeah.
It's something players really respond to.
It makes you feel like you're part of something.
Right. Even when things are crazy, you're not alone.
Exactly. We have each other.
And sometimes that's enough.
That's a really good point.
And it brings us to another important aspect of Zak McKracken.
Okay.
The message of hope. Yeah, it's about aliens trying to make us dumb.
Right.
But it's also about human ingenuity.
Resilience.
The belief that we can overcome anything if we work together.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah, and it's still relevant today.
Absolutely. But let's not forget the impact Zak McKracken had on adventure games as a whole.
Right. It wasn't just a good game in itself.
It paved the way for some of the most beloved games of all time.
Okay, now we're talking game history. Tell me more.
Well, think about the storytelling.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about the minimal dialogue, the way the game made you pay attention?
Yeah, it was different.
It was revolutionary back then. It created a more immersive experience, like watching a movie.
So Zak McKracken moved away from those text-heavy games.
Exactly. And that approach influenced so many games that came after.
Like what?
Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, even modern games like The Walking Dead.
Wow, so Zak McKracken had a lasting impact.
It did.
It's amazing to see how those early innovations still influence game design today. But it wasn't just the storytelling, right?
No.
Zak McKracken also experimented with new gameplay mechanics.
Like controlling multiple characters.
Which became a standard feature in adventure games.
Right. And that blend of humor, puzzles, exploration.
It's a classic formula.
And Zak McKracken was one of the first to get it right.
So it was a real trailblazer.
In many ways, yes.
Maybe not a huge mainstream success.
Right.
But its legacy is undeniable.
Absolutely.
It shows the power of creativity, of taking risks.
And the power of embracing the absurd, of laughing at ourselves.
Yeah, never stop asking questions.
Exactly. I think that's a great takeaway from Zak McKracken.
It reminds us to stay curious, to have a sense of humor.
Even when the world feels serious and overwhelming.
Well said.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive into Zak McKracken.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
We have.
From the game's development to its impact on culture and the adventure genre.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. It really has been. But if you had to, pick one thing, what makes Zak McKracken so memorable? What keeps people coming back to it?
It's that spark of curiosity. You know, it reminds us to embrace the weird, to question everything.
Even the stuff that seems ridiculous?
Especially the ridiculous stuff. Like, what if it's not so ridiculous after all?
Yeah, that's what the game does so well.
It makes you laugh, but then it gets you thinking.
Aliens, phone companies dumbing down the world.
It sounds crazy.
It does.
But then you start to see the deeper themes.
Truth, belief, globalization.
And it never loses that sense of humor.
Two-headed squirrels, mystics with credit cards.
Exactly. It's entertainment and thought-provoking all at the same time.
That's a rare combination.
It is.
It makes you want to talk about it with other people.
Share your theories, your discoveries.
And that's how cult followings are born, right?
People connect over something unique, something that not everyone gets.
Something special.
And it's not just about the game itself, it's about the community.
The fan art, the fan theories.
The memories people share.
It becomes more than just a game.
It's a cultural touchstone, a conversation starter.
A portal to a different way of thinking.
Beautifully said. It shows us that sometimes the most profound ideas come from the most unexpected places.
And that maybe, just maybe, those crazy ideas aren't so crazy after all.
Who knows? Maybe there's something to that whole alien phone company thing.
Well, on that note,
yeah,
I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Zak McKracken and the Alien Mindbenders.
It's been a blast.
It has.
I encourage everyone listening to go check out the game for yourselves.
Yeah, you might be surprised at what you discover.
And if you've already played it,
yeah,
we'd love to hear your thoughts.
What resonated with you?
What surprised you?
What theories did you come up with?
Share your experiences in the comments.
Let's keep the conversation going.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
and keep embracing the strange and wonderful.
Because you never know what amazing discoveries might be waiting just around the corner.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.